Hi, everybody. It's Dot. Okay, it is recording. So I just finished rewatching all of your FlipGrids from the first week because responding to them got away from me. And then I couldn't really remember them all, if you can believe that. So thank you again for both your beautiful posts and for your responses to each other. I just love how supportive you all are of each other. You know, these networks that you're creating with each other, for many of you, or for any of you, they can last your whole career, your whole lifetime. So I love that you are sort of taking that to heart and supporting each other. Woo woo. So I would agree with Kim that by the end, my prompt yielded from you some repetitive responses to a degree. And as I sort of took notes going through, I mean, certainly you all are understanding that qualitative work is about making meaning, about the fact that the researcher is the instrument, and that your positionality is sort of part of the picture. You can't ever really get away from that. There really were a lot of different points that y'all made. So I'm just going to kind of speak to them really quickly all together here. There was some conversation about case studies and about whether one can generalize from case studies or what does that look like. And in general, qualitative work contributes to what we call the horizontal accumulation of knowledge. That's a term that Elliot Eisner coined, as far as I know, rather than what we might imagine as a vertical accumulation. So it means that, you know, if I do a study in a particular context and I have a particular set of findings, before you go and apply that to your organization or your school or whatever, you have to think about the context, right? So it's not just this program works, it's let me think about how this matches with my context and how I might have to adjust it. Sally was talking about partners, collaborative community partners, being unsure about how to play that collaborative role. And I just wanted to highlight that is thinking about the same kind of ideas. So if you all hadn't picked up on that link, there it is. Some people were talking about grants and like, can I get grants based on qualitative findings? Totally depends. So you would want to look at the kinds of proposals that have been funded in the past, and depends on your field. So like in curriculum and instruction, qualitative is certainly legitimate in most quarters, and arguably, sorry, it's not you, it's me. Arguably, not more legitimate, but there are a lot of qualitative researchers in curriculum and instruction and teacher education. So don't be shy. But you know, your advisors will know your specific fields better. So somebody, I think Trish was talking about the sort of trying out in your mind the different approaches. And I really want to highlight that and encourage you all to do that. So I encourage you to really envision your study and even what you might be able to write about from your study process through a variety of approaches. I think I've mentioned that in class, but really I encourage you not just to think like, it'd be cool to have the participants create some art or whatever. Thinking through like what kinds of things might I ask them with a different conceptual framework, with different research questions. Assuming I'm doing interviews, what might I ask them, or what might I observe? Who might I talk to? And then if you really picture yourself sitting down with those transcripts or sitting down with your field notes and figuring out what sorts of things might come out in a report. Like, do I want to be writing about the sort of chronological narrative experiences of some of the participants, or am I trying to describe facets of a system or whatever? So yes, try on those stirrup pants and wear them around. Someone was talking about making the research process inclusive. Maybe that was David. And I love that you're thinking about that. I read a piece earlier today by Dr. Molly Sayudi, who's she's a sort of hybrid special education curriculum and instruction faculty, but she's in curriculum and instruction, and she's new, so she did her dissertation recently. And I think, I don't know, she'll just have interesting things to say about that if you wanted to reach out to her. Let's see. Some of you were talking about how qualitative research can help you build concepts and build theory versus just testing. And that's true. It certainly can build theory, and it also doesn't have to just be exploratory. So you can be, you can do exploratory work, but it doesn't have to only be exploratory. And there's also this possibility of being iterative, exploratory, and then honing in and exploring and honing in a little bit more. I want you to keep thinking about the rubber bands that connect across the components of the Maxwell model. So that research question, conceptual framework, goals, methods and analysis, validity. And so as you try out different possibilities, you should see some push-pull across all of those. So if you adjust your conceptual framework, I'm so sorry. If you adjust your conceptual framework, then that should adjust your research questions, right? And that might have implications for your design. And then if you think sort of logistically what it's implying for your design isn't going to work, so you have to make an adjustment in the design, then you need to backwards, rejigger those other parts. So it's a constant push-pull, and you want to try as best you can to attend to all those parts at once. I think John was kind of attending to variance versus process theory, and maybe Kevin as well. And yes, so that process focus is super important. And the idea of trying to see your way with a flashlight. That's what Jill was talking about. And you could use that metaphor lots of ways. So one way, and I can't remember this is how she was thinking about it, is you can only look from where you're standing, right? And you can make efforts to move your perspective and consider other people's perspectives. But if you and the person next to you theoretically went in with the same conceptual framework, the same research questions, even talk to the same participants, you could have different findings, and they could both be valid, and they could both contribute to this horizontal accumulation of knowledge. Trish's dog and Linnea's cat, and especially Sarah's son, are absolutely adorable. So thanks for including them. Let's see. No, I'm going to leave that to the end. Linnea was pointing out the thinness of quantitative research, how you're kind of missing that lived experience. And I think thinness is a great way to describe it. And also was asking about critical grounded theory. And I think, Linnea, you found Kathy Sharma's. And also, again, Molly Sayudi explicitly references that stance in her work. So she might be someone to reach out to. Someone, maybe Sarah, I'd forgotten, was talking about the value of story. And Kim was talking about how our own experiences shape all the phases of the study. And that's kind of what I was just talking about with the flashlight. Yes, you're there. You can't not be there. You can pretend you're not there, but that's just going to make your work weaker and less trustworthy. Let's see. I think Jeremy said the numbers themselves are suspect in quant. And this is part of the historical beef between those who take a quant approach and those who take a qual approach, which is that this idea of objectivity in quantitative work is pretend, right? And that's acknowledged a little bit in post-positivist work, which is why we have the controlling of variables and so on, and trying to intentionally winnow down so that we're really just comparing across particular variables. But if you get deep into a quantitative study, you discover there's all kinds of moments where you're making subjective decisions. And yeah, you're still holding your own positionality. Sheila had a really interesting comment about the colonization of the life world and that sort of intermeshing of the life world and this oppressive system. Um, and Sheila, I'm glad to hear that you're finding reasons to conduct research. This idea of co-constructing the now, I love that. So yes, there's good work to be done, and I appreciate how mindful you all are about the role you're playing. So the last part, I was curious about how your understandings have evolved since this first week video, and what you're thinking now. And also just on the wildly unimportant point of grading, basically, if you all contribute a beautiful initial post. So that was the like 10 points for this assignment. And then the part where you're giving responses to each other is the part of the participation, professionalism, blah, blah, blah grade. So somebody was asking, hey, I did a post, but I haven't done my responses, but I saw that I got 10 points. Like, that's why. I'm not really here to engage in a bunch of transactions about grades with you because I feel like you're beyond that. And I don't mean that critically against what anyone's perspective has been. I just don't want you to fret about that. Like, engage in the content, make it meaningful for you. If something I'm asking you to do feels like egregiously pointless, I certainly am trying to make things worthwhile and relevant for you. But if you're just like, wow, that's like total worksheet for me, talk to me about it. Let's change it. Okay. So let's not get bogged on grades. Okay. Well, as usual, longer than I expected, but hopefully helpful. You're wonderful. Have a fabulous weekend. See you soon.